Welcome back. Here with me is my friend Yoav, and we're talking Azure Security Center. We've talked about cloud security posture management, so let's talk about threat protection. What do you got for us, Yoav?
So, like we said before, it's not enough to just make sure that you lock the front door. You need to also assume that somebody can try and open it. That's why Azure Security Center both blocks and detects sophisticated threats in the environment. Threats such as unknown and known malware, lateral movement, crypto mining, and even application attacks. Azure Security Center protects all kinds of assets. It protects servers, both in Azure, but also in other clouds and on-premise. It protects PaaS services, such as Cosmos DB, SQL, storage, containers, application services, and more. And it has unique advantages when doing that. There are 3 unique advantages I want to tell you about. The first one is that Azure Security Center has access to the infrastructure signals of Azure. This helps us detect even the most sophisticated threats. Second, Azure Security Center uses and leverages the threat intelligence from Microsoft. We are the largest SaaS provider, and as a result of that, we see all attacks from all over the world, and we learn from those attacks, and we serve that intelligence to our customers as part of Security Center. And third, Azure Security Center can detect threats on one tenant, according to the signals that we see, and by using the machine learning technology, learn about the threat, so another customer can enjoy those learnings, so we can detect threats also in his environment. So this is an ability to leverage the scale of Azure and the amount of signals that we have to detect even more.
Wow, there's a lot there. So let me get this right. We have this big, huge data set, the Intelligent Security Graph, which is all the threat information that we've collected from all of our properties, from Xbox to Azure to third-party partners. That's pretty amazing. And then we look at tenants from the outside, not from the inside, and check out threats. And then we were having some fun with our T-shirts earlier. We have a red team and a blue team that hacks each other internally, so to speak, inside Azure, to make sure that we understand threats and fix threats. And we bring all of that intelligence together and we apply it against customers' resources in Azure. Is that it?
Yes, so definitely we have all this information from all the different places, and we use it to the benefit of our customers. Yeah.
Very cool. So we cover all types of resources, but many people start with virtual machines. So let's just do a deep dive into virtual machines.
Definitely. So let's talk about virtual machines. And for virtual machines, we provide a multi-layered protection. A couple of different layers that protect them. We protect both Linux and Windows-based virtual machines. And like I said, both in Azure and in other clouds and on-premise. The layers of protections that we provide is first the preventative layer, which protects against brute force attacks and reconnaissance attempts using just-in-time access. I can tell you more about this feature if you want.
Okay.
And second, it protects against the execution, prevents the execution of unknown malware or undesired processes on servers using a feature that we call adaptive application controls. The second layer is the detection layer, which Security Center comes with is an award-winning endpoint detection response suite that allows you to detect even the most sophisticated threats and also investigate. The Azure Security Center contains Defender ATP, which is an award-winning EDR that is part of the system, and it looks into your memory, your processes, your files, and even your inter-process communication inside the virtual machine. The third layer is the network layer, where we see the signals from the Azure underlying infrastructure to detect command and control communication, spamming, anomalies, and like I said before, even do that cross-tenant.
Great. So, let's talk about some of the common threats. The one that comes to mind immediately is denial of service. And of course, Azure has denial of service protection built into the platform itself. But let's talk about another one that's very common in infrastructure, which is the notion of attacking identities through management ports. People have virtual machines running Linux or Windows. There's SSH or RDP ports open. It creates an opportunity for attackers to just go out there and brute force passwords and eventually win and take over. How do we deal with that issue?
So Azure Security Center allows you to render your servers invisible using a feature we call just-in-time. The way this works is that administrative ports on the servers are closed, both port 22 or RDP, or any other administrative port that you want to protect, and they are not accessible. You cannot discover them using network scanning or anything like that. Whenever the administrator wants to access the port or wants to do an administrative task, whether it is manually through the UI or using an API or a script as part of continuous integration, continuous delivery, then he can ask to open the port just in time for a particular amount of time, for a particular set of IPs, and then after the operation is successful, close the port. So for the rest of the time, the machine is not discoverable and is not prone to brute force attacks.
Great. So we talked about VMs, but what about app services, which obviously runs web apps and mobile apps? What do we do there?
So for an app service is a new compute service, it's a PaaS service. We offer a very unique protection, a protection that doesn't require any appliance or any change on the network, because we are part of the service itself. And what we do for application services is that we are able to detect command and control communication, anomalies in the access, suspicious user agents, web fingerprinting, crypto mining, all kinds of activities and attacks on those application services as part of Security Center, and again, without needing to deploy anything to perform those detections.
That's very cool. So, I mean, we cover lots of resources, everything up to IoT, but if I pick the third resource that, lots of customers really need to pay attention to, it'd be data. What do we do for data?
So for data, we protect all kinds of data resources in Azure, like SQL and storage. For SQL, for example, we are able to detect SQL injections and anomalies in the access to the database, attacks carried by cyber criminals, and also anomalies in the pattern of consuming the data, like data exfiltration. For storage, we can detect unusual transfers of data as well. We can detect access from unusual locations, anonymous access, and you can get all those alerts also through your email. Again, this is seamlessly deployed. There is no need to deploy anything on those services because we maintain the PaaS services infrastructure and it's already there for you. All you have to do is to activate and start to see the alerts and respond to them.
That's very cool. Any conversation around threat protection, which is of course what we're talking about, would be absent if it wasn't missing a discussion on SIEM, which is kind of the granddaddy of threat protection. The customers use their SIEMs to import all the data and logs from across the business and do threat protection on them. Is Azure Security Center a SIEM, or how does that relate to a SIEM?
So Azure Security Center and a SIEM are very synergetic with each other. The reason for that is that Azure Security Center is the detection engine. It produces a lot of information about what's happening in the environment and a high quality alerts. And this information is what you need to send to your SIEM. So Azure Security Center seamlessly integrates with leading SIEM providers such as Splunk, QRadar, ArcSight, you name it, really within a couple of clicks. I'll be happy to show you that.
Oh, that's cool. So Azure Security Center takes all the threat information and signals from Azure and then integrates it into my SIEM that may take sources from across my enterprise. I heard we recently entered the SIEM market. Does Azure Security Center work with the newly announced Microsoft SIEM?
So, of course, Sentinel for Sentinel, the newly announced SIEM, for ASC, is another SIEM. ASC sends threat information to Sentinel. For Sentinel, ASC is another detection engine like Office 365 ATP or a next-gen firewall or anything custom that the customer build and sends alerts to Sentinel. So they play very well together. Security Center as a threat protection and detection engine, and Sentinel as a SIEM.
That's very cool. So I can use ASC to get visibility in a dashboard, and then I can do advanced threat hunting and mitigation in the SIEM. Well, that's awesome. Why don't we go ahead and dive straight into a demo?
Yes, let me show you.
Great, let's do it.
So this is the Security Center dashboard, and we already reviewed the first two stripes. Let's look at the threat protection stripe. Here you can see the different alerts according to their severity and the alerts over time, and also the most prevalent alerts. Let's drill down into security alerts over time. Here we can see the different alerts according to their severity. And we can see that they come and span from all across Azure, like a potential SQL injection, that's coming from the database. Successful RDP brute force attack, detected on the network level.
Somebody should use that just-in-time VM stuff.
Definitely they should. And modified system binary is something that comes from the agent that we deployed on the server and detect these kind of activities. Suspicious process that got executed. Again, that's coming from the endpoint detection response and from the threat detection that we have on the servers. So really the detections are wide and they span all across Azure. And there's also the notion in Security Center of automatically taking a couple of alerts, even if they are low priority, and mapping them to the kill chain, creating what we call an incident. So if I drill down this particular incident, you can see that there is a list of alerts, and not all of those alerts are a high priority, some of them are a low priority alerts, but you can see the whole story, that the SQL injection got blocked, there was a failed RDP brute force attack, a successful attack, then a suspicious process got executed, and domain accounts got queried, and then you had command and control communication. So there is a bot or a malicious malware deployed on that server. It really tells you the story and allows you to mitigate it. Now, this information is very helpful together with all the information that you have in your organization about threats, not only from Azure, but from all the different elements. That's why you can take all those detections, all this information, and integrate it to your SIEM.
Oh, cool.
To do that, you pick security solutions here in Security Center. You see the different security solutions. You pick to add a SIEM. And you get a very simple wizard that tells you what to do, to create an event hub, to stream the activity log, and to install a third-party SIEM connector, as the integration that we have with SIEM providers is productized. And really, you follow those steps, and the alerts and the information that I showed you, which is high quality and correlated, is sent to your SIEM for additional correlation and investigation.
That's very cool. And if I'm using Azure Sentinel, I think I can do the same thing, but I do it from Azure Sentinel as opposed to ASC. Is that right?
Yes, of course. You can get to Azure Sentinel and from there see all the alerts from ASC, which really beefs up the capabilities of Sentinel to detect what's happening in Azure and correlates it also with things that happen on-prem, on the user endpoints, and all the rest of the good things that Sentinel can do.
Awesome. Okay, great. So this obviously works for third-party SIEMs, but I think for Azure Sentinel, the integration with ASC, I don't start here. I actually start in Azure Sentinel and do a single click to add, or maybe it's a couple, Azure security events. Is that how it works?
That's exactly how it works. And once you do that, you enjoy all the detections and all the on Azure that Security Center produces in Sentinel and can explore them further and correlate them with other alerts that come from other security solutions, first party or third party included.
That's very cool. So we've addressed Azure Security Center threat protection. You know, what we can do to protect all of your resources in Azure using the intelligent security graph, this massive amount of threat protection information, and applying that to you, giving you great visibility on recommendations to fix that are obviously pretty important in terms of mitigation, and then also having this ability to integrate with your SIEM. That's really cool stuff. For more modules on security and broader Azure, stay tuned. Cheers.